Save My Piggies segment, and we're joined by Scott, who during the break we were just kind of. I was actually asking Scott to help us get into his mind. You know, he went from walking and having, some medical issues, but nothing that was life-threatening, to now being in a hospital with an attempt to get some better blood flow to both legs with these large incisions and devices to kind of help with wounds. So, Scott, take us into your mindset right now, where you're basically potentially staring down the barrel of losing both of your legs in a really short period of time. And I know your cousin Carol helped you out as well, and kind of bring us into her.
So I spent 23 days in the hospital first time, and when I got home, I went back for the first ultrasound 3 months later, found out that everything had occluded again. So right back in the hospital for another week. And Carol had been trying to get me to connect with the doctors she is seeing through the way to my heart. And I was hesitant. And then here in September, I had another.
Ribbit, I wanted to know, so when you were hesitant, because so many different patients who have the peripheral artery disease or the restricted blood flow in the legs, no matter what the cause, whether it's calcium or blood clots that were attributed to COVID in your case, what was going through your mind that you were hesitant to go out and get a second opinion? Because a lot of people struggle with that.
Right. So in June, when I went back for another ultrasound, my ABI scores were very high. They were 97, 98%. And so I was hesitant. I didn't feel I needed a second opinion. But then come September, that all changed. I ended up having to have another intervention. And by and large, and I don't mean to throw people under the bus, I started asking questions. And I quite honestly lost confidence and trust in the doctor I was seeing. I went for a second opinion. My cousin Carol, bless her heart, connected me through the way to my heart with a new doctor. I had 2 procedures with that doctor, and I walked out of his office.
Wow.
And I have another visit with them on Monday, and I will tell you what, even though my journey is just starting, but everything happens so quickly, and you have to be your own advocate. And my questions weren't being answered. Now my questions are being answered.
Are you glad Carol intervened on your behalf?
You're doggone right I am.
Carol, how do you
saved my life?
Oh, I'm very happy that he went to see them. You know, they opened up his natural artery. He no longer utilizes the bypass.
That's wonderful. And I mean, you've saved his legs by intervening on his behalf and going to Kim.
Right. And so the first procedure I had with the new doctor I'm seeing, he opened up all my natural arteries, 4 main natural arteries in my left leg. My right leg seems to be pretty much okay. There was some work to do on the lower part of my leg and my foot. He chose not to do it that day because he didn't want to overstress my body. So I went back 4 or 5 days later, and he finished it up and restored my blood flow to all my toes, restored blood flow to all my natural arteries.
So you don't have any ulcers or all the wounds healed?
No, I never did. I have a little bit of discoloration in my left big toe. And sometimes it feels gritty when I walk, but that's more because of nerve damage that had been done at the onset of this. And so where I see in the group that, a lot of people complain of pain and claudication when they're walking and stuff. I don't really ever experience pain. I'll get a little discomfort now and then if I'm inactive. If I'm walking and busy, zero pain at all. I can do 2 miles on a treadmill without blinking an eye.
Wow.
What did you do? I'm curious. What did you do when you were in the hospital for 23 days? Each day you're in a hospital bed, you lose a certain amount of muscle mass. And, we see this in patients who come in who have rest pain or their limbs are threatened, and we do whatever we can to get them better blood flow, but they end up sitting in the hospital and then they're getting weaker. And, we want them to walk once we improve their blood flow. Right. So at what point did you say to yourself, okay, I got to get out I got to save my legs, save my piggies, get out of this hospital, get motivated? I don't know if it was
I took it upon myself, doctor. They wanted me to stay pretty much bedridden, but I would slide the bedside table out of the way. I would lower the rail myself. I would flex my ankles. I would flex my feet. I would raise my leg. I would actually throw the pillows on my leg so there was some sort of resistance, and I would exercise myself. Wow. And then, I'm very much an advocate for myself, and in order to keep my limbs, in order to keep my life and enjoy my family and everything else, I will do the work. There's no problem with that.
And it's interesting because Carol, back in December when he was in the hospital doing this, and you were calling me with the Way to My Heart. We provide advocacy for folks who have peripheral artery disease, this restricted blood flow in the legs. You were very frustrated because you couldn't get him to get a second opinion at that point. You were like, we need to get you out of here. We need to get you a second opinion. What was he saying to you in that moment when you were like, dude, you're going to lose your legs?
Well, I didn't actually say he's going to lose his legs. I just said, you need to see these doctors. You're going to be amazed, and it's going to change your life completely.
And it has.
Right, but you wouldn't go at that point. You wouldn't go in December when you were in the thick of it, which was really surprising. Were you still in that mode where you're like, I really want to trust my doctor, and you had to have some sort of fear of changing the course?
I did, and because I'm a type A personality, which means I'm hard-headed, to be honest. And it is what it is. And but where I'm at now, she absolutely saved my life, no doubt about it.
Scott, I have to ask if do you send Carol a Christmas card already, and if not, do you send her one now?
Oh yeah, and then some.
And then some. Good, very good.
1 in 5 Americans suffer from a mental disorder like depression, which was once a rare condition just 50 years ago. Why are more Americans anxious and stressed? We'll take a deep dive on October 26th for the future of mental and behavioral health. I'm Bambi Francisco Roizen. Join me and healthcare innovators from UCSF to Meta, the owner of Facebook, to explore how COVID exacerbated the mental health crisis and whether new tech solutions are working, from digital therapeutics, teletherapy, faith-based apps, VR, and psychedelics. Join the conversation or just listen in from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific time on October 26th. Go to events.vader.tv to register. That's events.vator.tv.
So, Kim, we're on our last segment here. It's amazing how time flies. I think we've had a pretty thoughtful and definitely an interesting discussion about COVID, and Scott shared a great story about perseverance, and again, like we've always talked about, getting that second opinion. Kim, what do you think? What's your take home on COVID these days as someone who's non-medical? Are you worried?
It does make me nervous, but in terms of working with a lot of the folks that we help through the Way to My Heart, is we always encourage patients to talk to their doctor, have the discussion with them about mitigating their risk, getting on an aspirin regimen. For my dad, for example, he is a heart disease patient. We worked with his doctor that during the height of COVID that he would continue with his blood thinners to make sure that his blood was a little thinner. And even if he did get COVID, it would mitigate his risk for any sort of clotting. We also encourage patients who may not even know that they have some sort of vascular risk. They might have an autoimmune condition they may not know of. They might have thicker blood and may not realize it. We always suggest to go to the doctor and check to see what your risk factors might be. Do you have higher ferritin levels or iron levels, or do you have some other risk factor in your blood, pre-diabetes even, and at that point have that discussion as to whether or not you need to make sure that you have some sort of anticoagulant in your daily regimen. So that's really important.
Yeah, and I'll just say that as we move into this flu season and maybe COVID season, whatever, it's important for patients to continue, like you said, to see their physicians on a regular basis, get your cancer screening. Don't be a hermit. I just saw a patient yesterday who he's got valve disease and he's had bypass in his heart. And he said, I've been a hermit ever since COVID. And I said, Bill, you got to get out there and live your life and exercise. And, it's great that you're eating better because you're not going out to eat as much, but you have to live. I mean, you can't be held hostage by any virus, in my opinion.
And I'm wondering, nurse practitioner Kay.
I stayed shielding for over 2 years, John, and I went out for the first time in 2 years and 2 months, and I caught COVID.
Damn it, Kay.
What the luck? Seriously.
It had
what
to
the
be
luck.
Kay.
Right? And I have to imagine that Scott here might have some concerns, having now his experience. Scott, what are you and your doctors working on to mitigate your risk for further vascular complications? What are the discussions like for you?
I'm on both Xarelto and Plavix because I can't do an aspirin regimen. Unfortunately for me, I am highly allergic to aspirin.
Oh, wow.
So that's why I'm on both the Xarelto and the Plavix.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
thank you so much.
Changing my diet, more of a little bit of a Mediterranean diet.
Best one out.
Good for you. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Scott, thank you for sharing your story, and Carol for bringing Scott to us and helping to get him on the right track. Dr. Phillips, for everyone else here, thank you for joining us. Make sure you have the discussion with your doctor about COVID and vascular complications. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend and week, everybody.
Bye.
Take care, everybody. Stay safe out there.